Today we are talking about periodic functions applications again, except this time we talk about the depth of the water with the changing tide. The average depth of water at the end of a dock is 6 feet. This varies 2 feet in both directions with the tide. Suppose there is a high tide at 4 a.m. If the tide goes from low to high every 6 hours, write a cosine function describing the depth of water as a function of time with t equal 4 corresponding to 4 a.m. And what 2 times within one cycle is the tide at a depth of 5 feet? So first we see average depth of the water. Average depth of the water is the axis. And the axis is 6 feet. Next we see this varies 2 feet in both directions. In both directions tells you its amplitude. And amplitude is 2 feet. Suppose there is high tide. High tide represents maximum. Maximum is high, that is axis plus the amplitude. So 6 plus 2 is 8. And that occurs at 4 a.m. It says there's low to high every 6 hours. Well, so low to high occurs every 6 hours, which means one full period length is equal to 12. We can also say that the minimum is 6 minus 2 at axis minus amplitude, which is 4, and that occurs 6 hours after your maximum, which is 4 plus 6 is 10 a.m. And then our horizontal shift is the time at first maximum. So what time does the first maximum occur? That is 4 a.m. So we have everything we need here. And that tells us the axis, again, is 6, amplitude is 2, maximum is 8, minimum is 4, horizontal shift is 4 a.m., and the period length is 12 hours. Remember, the maximum occurs at 4 a.m., which is where we get the horizontal shift, and our minimum occurs at 10 a.m. Now, we must find A, B, C, and D. A is the amplitude, which is 2. B is 2 pi divided by the period length, which is 12, reduces down to pi over 6. C is the phase shift, which is 4, and D is the axis, which is 6. Now we have A, B, C, and D. We can substitute into this equation. Y equals 2 cosine pi over 6 times x minus 4 plus 6. Here is our equation. Now let's graph the equation. So we start with our axis, which is 6. Then we mark our amplitude, which is 4 for minimum and 8 for maximum. Then the first point we have is at 4. So the first point we have is at 4. Then the next point we know is the minimum that occurs at 10. And then we know 6 more hours will be another maximum. So 4, 8 is our first point, first maximum. 10, 4, first minimum. 16, 8, second maximum. So then we connect the dots, get our first full cycle, and then we proceed to answer questions at the end of our problem scenario. So don't forget, it says at what 2 times within one cycle is the tide at a depth of 5 feet. So that is y equals 5 feet, solve for x. And it will occur twice. So here we take the graph, and you should see that there is 2 places where the graph intersects at a depth of 5 feet. Hopefully you will also notice that these 2 places are approximately the same distance away from 10. So if I was to guess, I would say somewhere around 8 and 12 if I use the graph to guess where my 5 o'clock or my 5 feet depth is. 8 a.m. and noon, 12 p.m. But we can use the equation to solve to find both of these. So we look at the equation and we notice that 5 feet is equal to 2 cosine pi over 6 times x minus 4 plus 6. Now we must get the x by itself. So we must subtract 6 from both sides, and it becomes negative 1 equals 2 cosine of everything in parentheses. So then we divide both sides by 2, and it becomes 0.5 is equal to this cosine. And then we must get rid of this cosine, so that means take the inverse cosine. You put this in the calculator and you'll get 2.09 and so on. And that equals pi over 6 times x minus 4. Then you divide by pi over 6, and then you add 4. And x is equal to 8. So that actually proves our guess that 8 was very, very close to where the water was 5 feet deep. But remember, there are 2 times. Don't forget that there are 2 times when the water is 5 feet. So since this model is periodic, that means things start to repeat. Well, here is 8, and so the first time is 8 a.m. and since it's right before the minimum, it will repeat right after the minimum, which means we subtract the minimum time of 10 and 8. So 10 minus 8 is 2. That's where we get the 2 hours from. And that means the next occurrence will be 2 hours after the minimum. So that means we take 10 and add this 2, and we get 12. So that means 12 p.m. as predicted will be the other time. Guys, this is part 1 of periodic functions that has depth of water with the changing of the tide.